When I go out to film an episode like Greenhaven Gardens, I learn about another episode. And they told me about King Garlic. That episode will be coming up later this year. And then I'm at King Garlic and I meet someone that is truly fantastic. And this is something I've loved as a child, and it's a miniaturist. And she will take us on a journey of what it's like to be a miniaturist and how miniaturists create this real world, but in very small items, with very small items, built and bought. This is one of mine that's a diary, a miniature diary with little stories in there, believe it or not. And as always, we are thankful to Tor Horse Insurance for helping us produce this episode and many others and being a contributor to OCA Media and Oregon Life. If you would like to sponsor a show or contribute in any way, as we are a nonprofit, contact Paul Zwicker, our director, and there's a link below where you can reach him. Go to our website, and there's a donation page where you can become a donor and keep these shows airing here on OCA Media. So enjoy this show, The Miniaturist on Oregon Life.
Welcome to my miniature home. Hi, I'm Marissa Lukasek, and I've been creating miniatures for 40 years. The reason I got interested in miniatures is that when I was 10 years old, I was looking at the JCPenney catalog, the Christmas catalog that came out every year, and we would flip through and see what we wanted to ask Santa for Christmas, and I saw a picture of a dollhouse, and it wasn't really in my nature to play with dolls. I fought that. I had wanted nothing to do with dolls, but I really wanted this dollhouse. I wanted to build it and decorate it, and my parents got it for me and then helped me put it together. So this is the first dollhouse that I ever had that I built with my mom and dad. I was 10 when I got it, so I was probably 10 or 11 in this photo. And I still have it today. It's just as it's gone through some transitions, I've gone through some transitions too. So when I first got started as a child, you could go to shops and buy miniatures. But as time went along and the fashion kind of faded, I had to start making things myself. I had a great teacher that my mom was a seamstress, so we could make curtains and bedding and pillows. So that was really helpful. But as the trend faded and you couldn't go to dollhouse shops anymore, I had to start figuring out how to make things for myself. So I really see the world in shapes. And when I see something tiny, I think, oh, that looks like a drinking glass, or oh, that looks like it could be a suitcase. So I think that I have a unique vision in that I see the world in shapes. And then that has just really helped me over the years to be able to build anything I want in miniature size. So when I'm out, either at a thrift store or a garage sale or a crafting store, I'm always just looking for teeny tiny little things. I have to look at the jewelry. I have to look at the toys. I have to look in the antique section because I'm always looking for that little tiny thing. And a lot of times I find it, but it's not how you think you're going to find it. If it's a piece of jewelry, I have to then come home and take it apart. If it's little pots that have been glued on a shelf that somebody bought in Mexico as a souvenir and brought home and then donated, I have to come home and soak that little shelf to get those pots to come off of the shelf. So, and I'm teaching people how to do this. My sister, who is a little bit older than me, I always tell her to look for miniatures, and now she is training her eye to go out and about and find things that she thinks that I would be interested in. I think I probably got a little trinket at Vinnie's, painted it, put paper on it, put the pearls on it, put the sunglasses on it. That was, I'm sure, a charm. These were purchased, and then this was probably a little charm. So you just have to be brave. And when it comes apart, you reglue it. And then the veil is an antique handkerchief that I cut up. So, and then just put the bow on it, glued it on, and there you have it. So sometimes when I can't sleep at night, I use my miniature creations to just calm my mind. I try to create everything to be real and believable. So when I can't sleep, I pretend that I'm looking at the front of one of my doll houses or creations, my miniatures, and I walk up to it and I open the door, and I walk inside, and I look to the left. If it's a dollhouse, maybe you're in the living room now, so I'm looking at the furniture. And then if you go to the right, you're going into the kitchen. And I just imagine that I'm inside my creation. For one, it just helps me calm my mind. The other one, it's a bit of a puzzle. Like, did I make it to be believable? So this is a suitcase that's traveled all over the world, and now I turned it into the Luna Bell Hotel. I wanted it to have a European feel, or like a micro hotel feel, kind of like the Ruby Marie Hotel. So kind of a boutique experience, not very many rooms. It's all pink and green and cat themed. And what is the address? 1106 is my husband's birthday. Well, it's nearing lunchtime, so let's visit our bakery, the Taste of France. So this piece has gone through many transitions. I first got this piece when I was a teenager. When I purchased it and built it, it was meant to be a general store. So it was colonial blue with lots of plaid and just homesy things. Over the years, it's transitioned. I wanted it to grow up a bit. It was very bold when I painted the exterior black, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And having visited France, I just wanted to represent the time that I had spent eating wonderful croissant in France. So come on into my living room. This is a house that my dad made in the 1980s. Dollhouses were very trendy at the time, and he just went down the basement and without a pattern made this incredible dollhouse. So I love it because it's a log cabin. You don't need to wallpaper the walls. You don't need to worry about the ceiling. You can just get started decorating it right away. To stay on theme, I wanted to make it into, I call it the Santa Fe flavored dollhouse. And I just wanted a Southwestern themed house. I think I've achieved that. We're celebrating Dia de los Muertos over with our altar. And we have photographs of real family members in those tiny little photo frames on the wall. I cut up some tiny little photos that my mom had given me. And all throughout the house are good memories because it's taken me a lot of trips and travels to collect all the miniatures that you see here today. So one of the first conversations I had with my current husband, Pat, was about Detroit and miniatures. And did I know that Colleen Moore came from Port Huron, where he was from, because Colleen Moore was a silent film actress, and she created the fairy castle that's down at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. So that was one of our very first conversations. And once we started dating, I had shared a miniature with him that I made. I call it the Taste of France, and he calls it the French Bakery. So he says that that's the first one I ever showed to him. And then for our first date was at the Next Door Brewery in Madison. And for our 3rd year of dating anniversary, I made him a miniature of the Next Door Brewery. He didn't know, we didn't live together at the time, so I did it all in secret. And then to reveal it, I took it to the Next Door Brewery and had him meet me there, and it was very exciting. So after that, he wanted to help me out. He gets very excited about my work. I don't think he likes the mess that it creates, but he likes the finished product. And so he helped me organize and put together, for Art Walk in Madison, we had rented a gallery space, and he helped me get all set up, and he dressed up, and he bought all the wine, and he bought all the cheese, and then he just was like the maitre d' all night, just showing people around, so, and being proud of my work, so. But we had about 200 people show up. So my plans for the future is to have a gallery. Living in Stoughton, we have such a beautiful downtown, and I can picture in my mind purchasing one of the beautiful old buildings and having the front of the building be a shop and the back of the building being a miniature museum with my miniatures featured. Over the years, I've dragged my family around to many, many miniature museums, and we would plan our family vacations to highlight these different museums in different states, near and far. So I would just really like to create this travel destination for other miniaturists, and then I would just like it to be an inspiration place and a creation space for people, for local people to come in and get inspired and maybe go home and create something for themselves.
Next on Oregon Life, let's take a look at Cop Key's greenhouse and some of the cool things they're doing for Wisconsin Badger Honor Flight.
Because he was still working with this stuff, so, yeah.
Nice to meet you too.
He has to be referred to as El Presidente.
Yes, yes.
That's how you're supposed to.
Well, 5 o'clock. Let's get this park board starting. So I'll call this to order. Second item, we'll start off with roll call. If we can now call
Herman.
roll call.
Sorry, was that me?
That was you.
I'm present.
Okay. McDaniel.
Here.
Roddy.
Here.
Jameson. Miller.
Present.
Knudsen. Here. Frisch. Here. All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Third item, the approval of March 12th, 2024, and the April 9th meeting minutes. Those were included in the packet. Any corrections,
we have
any
one?
adjustments?
We don't have
We
one.
don't have the April.
We don't have the
No,
April?
sorry.
Okay, just the March?
Just the March.
Okay. So March 12th, meeting minutes were in there. Any corrections, any clarifications? Do we have an action approval?
I'll move to approve those.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments, discussions? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. The Park Board does have the opportunity for public appearances. Anybody that would like to present to the Park Board doesn't necessarily need to be on the agenda, doesn't necessarily mean that any other discussion or action may take place of it. But anything included or not included in the agenda is available. Anybody willing to approach the Park Board? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. Move on to item 5, reports for the village staff. 5A, Director of Public Works.
Yes, so, just in here, this is one of those, I have a few files on my desk I'm not very proud of that have kind of slipped over the years, and one of them has been to get a bench ordered, some trees planted and everything, kind of honoring Mike Grace as our administrator for over 22 years. And so we have that ordered. I had 2 locations that we looked at for this. You can see in the packet. This is option A, I call it, and option B. I kind of like option A just because it's kind of in the center of projects that Mike was very involved with. Library, food pantry, village hall, post office. So he can't escape us there. I did talk with Mike. We actually met with him this last week. Had it brought with him, and he's doing well and just is honored. This is not something he would request, but we do have some donation funds that were given at his retirement that is going to this. So it's not at a cost for the village at all, and we'll do our standard concrete pad below it, and then I'm going to plant some trees around it just so we kind of create a small grove. Everything. But typically, we've kind of been running these past you all, just to let you know. If there are any questions or anything, here's the mock-up of the bench. If you say no to the bench, we've got a serious problem because I already paid for it. I can't imagine why you would, but yeah,
Very nice.
yeah, thanks.
Which option did he pick?
He didn't care, but
You guys have a recommendation.
But option A is kind of nice. It sits up a little higher, and there's a little library over there that will probably have to get rebuilt one of these years. But yeah. And what we're trying, if you've noticed, like if you walk through the park, a lot of those benches are getting up near 15 years old, maybe. I think the older benches, and they're starting to look their age. And so this has been a really nice opportunity to kind of swap out some of those. We have another one that is planned also. I haven't brought that one before you.
Those benches are a metal frame with kind of a
They're-
artificial wood type
No, they're solid metal.
I'm talking about
Oh,
current.
yes, they're kind of a 2-post metal framed.
Correct.
They always get tall grass around them because they're difficult to mow around, and especially if the guys don't get out and weed whip around them. But yeah, with these pads, allow us to mow right around them and look nice and stuff. But
This is similar to the bench at pickleball, right?
this one,
Miller?
yes, exact for the Miller
Correct.
bench. Yes, we have these for Judy's daughter over in
Oh, yeah.
the actually at Keller Alpine Park near the parking lot, and we have one downtown too, I think, don't we? Yeah, we probably have maybe 8 to 10 of these type benches now around the village. They're nice. We like them because they don't have these, a lot of memorial benches will have these tiny little engraved plaques that end up fading over time, and these are those will last for eons.
Okay, great.
I just have a comment. I don't have a preference on where you put it. I like the idea of putting a bench somewhere as opposed to naming a plot of land after people.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I'm much more on board with honoring people this way.
yeah.
Anybody in the park board have a recommendation between A and B location?
I'll leave it up to Jeff.
We can take an action on that. We can make a motion on them.
I'll make a motion to let Jeff handle where he wants it.
We have a second?
I'll second.
There you go, Lynn. Any other discussion in regards to the park bench? Mike Grayson. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved.
Excellent. We'll probably have him come out, when time comes to, dedicate that and have he and his wife out there and stuff, so.
Yeah,
He's-
please let us know too, so we.
Absolutely, absolutely, yep. He's probably watching now and going, no,
Have to surprise him.
correct.
Mike, we're coming.
And then, I have a memo for this, for the
I had a
keys?
physical one, but not a PDF.
Oh, okay.
The key one.
So on the keys, as you know, we are, this Saturday, we're dedicating J.C. Park. We have the Kids Get Fit event. Is that this next one? No. And the dedication at 9:30. We have free concessions. We have sodas. We have water. We have all sorts of fun stuff for the kids planned on Saturday. But actually, the sports clubs have been using J.C. Park. Really, it was fun to see them in the field and everything when we go by. But we also have, the new concession stand and bathroom buildings. What we're doing was a key checkout policy now, which we've never done before. We kind of firmly believe that there's probably 8,000 keys to the old J.C. Park bathrooms somewhere out there. So what we're trying to do is we take a deposit at the beginning. Whenever they take a set out, it's $50. And then we have them sign a small form that just says they will take care of the keys and return them. We're gonna collect them at the end of the season. It just helps us financially with the deposit and everything. And they can check out as many sets as they want. It's just $50 a set, and that covers, if they lose sets, that's $50, and that does help offset when we have to go rekey things and everything. So
What kind of response have you had with that so far?
I think we have 10 sets checked out right now. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
That key cost and rekeying is expensive.
It can be, yeah. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and then, yeah, it just helps us. And I think honestly, it just keeps people in mind too. When there's a little bit of a charge behind something, it allows them to take care of things a little better as far as keeping track of the keys and stuff, so. Yep.
Any thoughts, comments from the park board? No, hearing none. Item 5B, Community Director Development Report.
There we go. Not too much to report on my end. The downtown master plan has been at least kicked off by staff, but at our early June meetings, all included in the June park board meeting, just FYI, so you guys will know events that we plan to be at, but we'll have a community engagement plan with kind of a schedule laid out. So we just got a draft of that last night. So looking at that with our consultants from Redevelopment Resources and just going back and forth on which events the consultants should staff versus village staff handling, and how we would kind of reach out to neighbors, property owners, as well as just the general public. So stay tuned for that, but you can expect probably in June and kicking off for the rest of the summer, there'll be a lot of engagement events for that downtown master plan. So stay tuned for that. I'll have more info in June.
Awesome. Thank you. 5C, Recreational Programming Coordination Report.
All right, so we'll start off with the really fun upcoming events that we have. Hopefully you've seen this bright pink flyer around town. But this summer, Oregon is the place to be. We're gonna do our first outdoor movie nights Friday, June 7th, so last day of school. So come celebrate by watching Barbie at J.C. Community Park, Field 2. We have the Sounds of Summer concert series. We only have 5 this year, so we need to make them count. But we've got 5 pretty great acts. We have some returning favorites, and we have a new one. Well, new to me at least. I think they've played in Waterman Park before, but Marcy and the Highlights. And of course, you can't forget the grand finale, Universal Sound. And then we end with our outdoor movie night, like right before things just get too cold to be outside for that long. And we're going to do Wonka at JC Community Park. So we've got a really fun summer ahead. All right, and should I go right into my
Yes,
next?
go right
All right,
ahead.
speaking of fun summer, Summerfest it's up and going. We have a new carnival company, so spread the word. Um, we're really pleased with them so far, so we think it's going to be a lot better. Softball tournament will be running as usual, but there will also be pickleball tournament, a volleyball tournament, craft fair, and the parade, of course, will be on Sunday. Still working on a marching band, so if anybody knows of, or they don't even have to march, we can pull them if you just know a group of people that play instruments. We'll figure it out. But yes, let me know if you have any leads. And we did just choose a grand marshal for the parade. It will be Mr. Gene Berman, celebrating 50 years with the Oregon Fire Department. So they're gonna put him on a fire truck and get it decked out, and it should be really fun. And the theme for the parade is fun and games. All right, me again.
Yes, continue on.
All right, so the last time that we all met with the sports organization after Park Board, it was fairly successful. There was a lot of good conversations had. And one of the repeating patterns was, hey, we really need to do this more often. So I'm proposing in June, after the park board meeting on the 11th, potentially doing it again, just so we can see how are things going. You know, now that seasons are underway, how's concessions, fields, you name it. You know, let's just check in. So yeah,
It's a great idea.
thank you.
Any thoughts on the park board?
I do. I know, it's a shocker. One of the events you didn't talk about was the Kids Get Fit event coming up on Saturday.
Yes.
How many, for the lack of a better term, vendors do you have lined up for that, and who are they?
Oh gosh, so we've got a pretty good mix. So we have a lot of youth sports orgs, and lacrosse. They're gonna bring some equipment to mess around with. OHS cheer is gonna be there, so they're gonna have little panther tattoos, and hopefully there will be enough of them to perform. Mr. Hornerman will be doing a really awesome disc golf demonstration. Infinity Martial Arts, they're going to do board breaking. So there's going to be a lot of physical fitness there, as well as Hy-Vee will be there with their Healthy Kids program. So they'll be handing out information for that and healthy snacks. And OCB will be there to promote physical fitness. Youth Center will be there, and Oregon Mental Health Services will be there as well.
And it's all going to be centered around the concession stand?
Correct. Yep. So yeah, we're very excited.
Judy?
And did you get enough help?
Yes. Yep, we do have one slot left, but I forced my husband to do it. So so I'm sure he would love the relief if anybody else would like to take it. But it's just an 11 o'clock behind the scenes slot. So if anybody would like it, but thank you to everybody that signed up.
Excellent. Is there any permission that's necessary for the outdoor movies?
What's that?
For the outdoor movie, is there any permission that's necessary to do
Yes, and I have it. That's why it was so secret for so long, and why I could kind of use the logo, but kind of not. But yes, I have acquired the license, so I can.
Permission for the movie or permission to do the movie night?
For the movie.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that
Yes.
sometimes is a little tricky.
it can be, but yes,
Yeah.
we.
Thought I
Yeah.
understood you can't announce what the movie is, but is there something on
But
that?
yeah, we're all above board, and yep, we're good.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you, though.
Appreciate that. Any other thoughts, questions?
Yes.
My only thought or kind of comment about the potential sports org meeting in June is maybe to surround it with a bit of organization so that we can hear from all of the sports orgs.
Oh, okay, that's
as
a good
opposed
idea.
to just a select few. I think it would be helpful for the park board to hear about how some of the smaller groups versus some of the larger groups using specific, like, different fields. It'd be nice just to hear their voices equally.
Yeah,
at least
absolutely.
at the beginning.
I think that's a great idea.
Any other comments? Hearing Hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, any unfinished business, discussion other potential actions. Don't have any of these in particular, so. New business items, 7A, the Oregon Soccer Club, talking about the rates of 2024. Eric, that's you. Thank you for that letter for sending to us. Yeah, if you could just.
I might have done this before.
Yeah. State your name and where you live. I appreciate that.
Sure. Eric Anderson, 567 Cherrywood Drive.
And Randy Ruth at 120 Jill Court.
Randy's our vice president. So, yeah, I think we kind of laid out most of our comments in that letter. You know, we knew that this was coming. This is not a huge surprise that there were fees coming. We knew to expect them. What we did not know were what those rates were going to look like, and what that total bill would look like. I mean, just, you know, like when Leanne sent the email, she said, I realize this is a really big number. So, you know, as we sat down and looked through the numbers, these were the things that we discussed. You know, I guess somewhat procedurally, the fact that we collect probably 80% of our registrations in June, July, August, when fees hit in December, and then we're told in March. That's pretty difficult for us to guess what that's going to be. So number one, there was really for this specific year, there was really no way for us to adjust budgets to try to accommodate that. And number two, I mean, and then it just triggered some other discussions and the questions that we asked about whether there would be consideration given to some sort of a cap maximum, or if that's not possible, if a system could be set up for actual usage, and that might be unique to us. You know, when we walked through some of our numbers, we probably will end up using somewhere around 50% of the hours that we actually request. And I think we laid out why we request so many hours. Most of the fields in Oregon do not take water well at all. And we are very careful to stay off of them so that we do not ruin them. But to do that, then we need to move somewhere else. And we have to shift, like if there's a day, we get a whole day where games are all rained out, then we need to find those games a new place later in the schedule. You know, that combined with, you know, we've got so many teams and so many kids playing, you know, we've got family schedules to deal with, coaches, can they make it to this date at this time? Well, what about this one? I mean, these are the discussions that we do over and over again. And so I guess if there's no, and granted, I think these are two separate issues. Like the fact that we weren't able to offset our fees to accommodate this is one issue, but then the other one is maybe a longer term policy kind of issue. But you know, then it turned to, well, if we're going to pay for usage, to us, we're wondering if we could pay for actual usage rather than what we do reserve. I mean, I would say on the, you know, further on that point, like if we continue to have to pay on reservations, I think it increases the pressure on us to use that field on a day where maybe we shouldn't, if we know we're paying for it. You know, I put in the example, the first week of April, we had a bunch of fields reserved and we didn't use 1 second of them. But under the current system, we would still pay for them. So, yeah, I think that kind of lays out kind of the one concern that we had that was more of a calendar concern, and then the other two questions that are longer term concerns. And like we said, like we figured out we have 900 people, we have 900 players right now. That's been pretty consistent. This is a third straight year we're right around that number. That would be $26 additionally. I know, like Lynn, I know your daughter is playing, so you know what your fee was if we added another $26 to it. And then there's this whole thing about like some of the players never play on village fields; they only play on OSD fields, so they have to pay. Does everybody in the club have to have a fair share of that kind of fee? I mean, some of these rates are like $80 for the season, so if we add 26 to it, that's not really, like, we can't do that. That's just not feasible. So, so we thought, Leanne did say, hey, you can come and chat with the park board if you'd like, so we figured we would take this opportunity. And happy to answer any questions, anything that we can help with.
Thank you, first of all, Eric, for coming forward and bringing this and bringing some information. It's always awesome to have some ideas and some suggestions. That's a great way. So what kind of comments is the park board thinking about?
Well, I'll jump in. First, again, thank you guys for coming. Also, thank you for not using the fields if they're wet. I mean, I can totally understand that as well. The thing that I kind of would get hung up on about actual use versus reservation is I looked at that reservation list. You know, some of those parks for the day, you know, all the parks were listed 8 to 8, you know, as well. And it'd be hard, you know, unless you knew when you were actually going to use them. Again, it's hard when you don't know weather and different things. You know, it's hard for other people to reserve that, you know, then as well. You know, it's, you know, I know there's some neighbors to some of the parks where, you know, they're not happy that the little neighborhood parks are being used.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm sure there are plenty who are happy when we don't use them.
Right. So, but I mean, my point is then, you know, if you would know when you would actually need them, you know, that would help. But again, if you don't, I'm kind of stuck in the middle, you know, there as well, which I know you are too. You know, because I'm sure some of those neighbors would like to reserve the park so it wouldn't get used, you know, and they'd be happy to pay the $100 for the week, you know, as well, you know, for that. So I'm trying to figure out how this all
I hadn't
works.
even thought of that, but
Yeah, I mean,
I
I'm
could see that
spiteful
happening.
enough
Yeah.
that I would do it.
No, I could see that
Which is
happening.
why I'm saying it, you know, but,
well,
yeah.
Well, first of all, it sounds like you have a couple of things. Do you want me to
No,
answer
go ahead.
that
Yeah,
part?
please
Okay,
jump in.
Okay. I think on that one, we are more than happy if someone wants to use it.
Yeah.
And someone emails and like if I'm probably going through Leanne just to guess. If she emailed and said, hey, somebody wants this on Saturday from noon to 2, are you guys using it? If we're not, our answer is nope, not using it, go ahead.
Right, yeah, and until we have a more robust reservation system where people
Yeah.
would know that they can do that, but then, you know, that's where you run into the problem, okay, it's booked.
Yeah.
You know, type of thing, you know, I don't know the amount of work it would take into refining, you know, the reservations. I mean, but it's just one of those things where you want all the parks for the whole day.
Yep.
It's just.
No, I get it.
It's tough.
I mean, you know, just so the thing is when we're sitting here right now, I can tell you that I think it's this Saturday, there are no games at Norm Champion, which will make the neighbors there very happy. However, if it rains tomorrow, the games that we're supposed to play tomorrow could easily be moved to Norm Champion on Saturday. And these are the kinds of things that we have to try to legislate for. And, you know, at some point, I mean, okay, $25,000 is just not feasible.
Right.
Right? We can't, like, we could do that, but we're not gonna do that every year. It's just, that's not gonna happen, which means we would have to scale back our reservations, which means we would be jamming things in, and then there would
Then you don't
be-
have the flexibility.
Yeah, and then there would be no days when there's no games at, you know, Champion or whatever. I'm just picking that field because I know that's one that people
And
like
we
to
would
talk
end
about.
up in a manner of, like, I'm one that goes out and checks the fields, both village and some of the school ones, and given that we do have some flexibility, I am far more like, this field's already in this condition.
Sure.
I don't wanna play this game if I don't have to. But that becomes an issue is once we start limiting our stuff, I'll be like, we could play.
Right.
And so at that point, then it's like, this game's gotta go, cause I don't know where it's gonna go after today. And I mean, we've been around.
Yeah.
I've worked on some of the fields after the end of our last season, at the end of fall. Like I went through and put dirt in some spots, planted grass seed, hay to try to save some of them. And it would just become right now we're far more conservative in let's move this game later and not probably tear this field up. Whereas if we got limited, we don't want to be in a spot where we're like, hey, this game can be played. We got to do it. And then
Yeah, the
suffer
whole
the field
can
consequences
versus
of-
should, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so like those kind of are, you know, we've really tried to work and not destroy what we don't need to. And losing that flexibility kind of pushes our hand into if this game can be played, we have to play it.
Sure.
And I don't know that that's necessarily where any of us want to
Wanna,
go.
yeah.
And
Right.
it just makes it really tough later on. Like, as I just had to reschedule 2 of my own team's games, working with other groups, and it's like, well, this day, or Tuesday, or Monday, like we're playing games on weekdays that we don't normally do. It just really becomes a struggle if then to find out, oh, nope, that field's not even an option because we don't have it reserved during one of the times that we normally would. Spring season much worse than fall.
I'll let someone else jump in and I might think of something else, but
Anybody else?
I was just curious about the other teams then. Are they going to say, do we get a break? Because I know there was, when we had the team meeting, people were kind of saying, oh, we don't want to pay this either. So are we going to get into that? And then we're opening the floodgates.
Yep. No, I totally understand that. I know, I assume Leanne said the same thing to all the groups. I mean,
Yep.
it said it in our email, so I
Yep,
thought
absolutely.
we should come and chat. In fact, when I was interested to see the agenda to see if we were the only group. But it also might have to do with the amount of hours that the other clubs have
Absolutely.
reservations versus ours.
And just to interject here, just so you guys kind of know process, this wasn't necessarily in the memo, but because we do have the fee schedule, the $2 an hour in the fee schedule adopted by the village board, depending on where the conversation goes tonight, if you guys make a recommendation, that will go to the village board, probably the early June meeting, just because we're a little tight for this coming Monday's deadline for the packet. So ultimately, it'll go to the village board, and then they can kind of weigh that. And if there were other groups that wanted to come forward with, you know, kind of state their case and come up with some kind of solution with the park board and make a recommendation, it'd be that same process for any other group that wanted to come forward.
Then the other comment I had is if we just hired Leanne to do this work and we're hiring somebody else,
Hiring our park
a
manager.
park
that's-
manager, so is, 'cause this money is supposed to go for this. So
Right.
are we, I mean, the village has already said that they're, broke. I mean, that's what Martin said at the meeting one night. So, that they have to go for a referendum and try to get a referendum. So why would we do this, I guess, I'm trying to figure this out.
Why would we do what? Limit the?
Yeah, why would we cut our rates off when we need that money? Because they're gonna go for referendum in April of '25. So maybe we need this money to keep the village.
So I guess with that, Leanne, what sort of systems limitations? Like what Andy was saying, if you're doing 8 to 8 all the way through the season, like it's hard for anybody to jump in without all the additional emails.
Right.
But what about if they find they didn't use it for the first week? Can we take that out somehow and then really have them only charge for
Yeah.
usable hours and that communication, like?
Yeah, I would do.
So that was one thing that we did list as a possibility. I mean, at least then we would know, we would be able to budget appropriately with it.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know till after, but I was just, so it is something we can do with
Oh
the
yeah,
system.
absolutely.
And then the question for you, what would you think is a reasonable cap if that was discussed as?
I thought someone would ask.
Can offer, you gotta start somewhere, right?
I'm not gonna get 3,000.
Yeah, no,
A month, $1,000.
no.
Start the
I
bidding.
gotta start a negotiating.
Yeah, but once he already says he's
Yeah.
not gonna be using that, it's not gonna be 25,000. It's gonna be
Correct.
a lot less.
Yeah.
So I think we need to find out what that's gonna be.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, so I did struggle with that. I did try You know, I talked to our treasurer and a guy who has done a lot of work with us over the years. And we looked at realistically about 8,000 to 10,000, somewhere in there would be what we would be looking at. And to follow up, Judy, I'm taxpayer here too. I agree, I understand. I would say that, I mean, I said it earlier, that while we could pay the bill, that's not a concern. That's not sustainable for us moving forward. So we would not do that, which means we would pull back a lot of those. And then in some of those cases, yes, people would take those park reservations. In many of them, they would not. That is just a fact. So then there would be zero coming in for that, either way. So we would probably face pressure to play on fields we maybe should let sit, and there would be zero coming in for fields being not used. So,
I mean, I don't think you can ask the sports organizations to pay for the debt the village has incurred, you know, so I'm not overly worried about that. But
Do we know, to your point, and I get the spitefulness, because there's some on that I would like to reserve just out of spite, but there's, is there truly a request, non-spiteful, maybe by a neighbor who's just angry, but by somebody who's actually going to use any of these space fields? Do you get a regular amount? And I don't even know what a regular amount is, but do you get requests for the spaces that we use on a regular basis?
It's usually we're able to work it out because your summer season doesn't cover as many fields. I can count on one hand the amount of requests that we get that are non-sports org athletic facility reservations. And so far I have not had to turn any away. Like I said, they fall in summer, and your summer season.
More to his point is that if we cut back on all these, there isn't a list of people, so we may have it for those 8 hours, but from what I'm hearing is we're not taking it from anyone else. That's kind of the thought process of
and just to follow through,
reducing to the usage area.
If you did, I'm saying it right here, if you got any requests for something, absolutely contact us. We do this all the time internally.
Absolutely.
Between youth softball, baseball, football, us, whoever, lacrosse. You know, that meeting that was held was very good to just sit down and talk to people.
Absolutely.
And it led to emails back and forth about, what about this, what about that? I added some more reservations, but that was after talking to Wade at lacrosse, right? I knew he wasn't needing it. We needed one more game, so we did that. So these are the kind of things we are more than happy to work with anybody to try to accommodate, to help out if they're looking for usage and they feel like they're not being allowed to.
Jeff, did you? Or Lynn has a
I wanted to make a couple points here because I think all of this discussion is good. I also think I want to remind the park board as well as other people that, so for instance, my family is doing soccer right now and we're using the fields, but we're also using the playground equipment. It is a time where these parks are being used by a ton of families because I am trying to entertain a 2-year-old while a 5-year-old plays a game, which is not that entertaining to the 2-year-old. And so it's a dual benefit to me that these soccer or that youth sports clubs are using these fields because they're also using the adjacent playgrounds that are often very quiet. And I think that's a really good benefit to our parks that we have families coming in and utilizing it. So we talk about fields, right? But we're talking about the entire park, and I think that's helpful. I also agree that the usage, I appreciate that you respect our parks enough to know when to adjust schedules, and I don't want to put you in a situation where you're starting to make decisions without the benefit of our parks at the forefront. And so I think that is really important, and I would be in favor of looking at a usage schedule. And then lastly, I do agree that if we had a reservation, but that someone came in, that we were sort of all under the understanding that youth sports has these reserved, but that outside organizations, families, you know, other community events could have preference if they're able to show you that like they're using it, you're in communication with these sports orgs and able to find some compromises. I do agree, until we get a lot of people knocking on doors for the same things at the same time, I think it is respectful to sort of say that there is, you know, a usage fee rather than necessarily a reservation fee. Sorry, my last thing. If we go to a usage, is that more appropriate to your budget number?
Yeah, I think based on the numbers we were looking at, I mean, it's, you know, it's still, it was 1,500 last year, 8-ish, probably 8 to 10 is what we were kind of looking at without knowing for sure. That's way, you know, that's well more affordable,
Right.
obviously, for a nonprofit. But yeah, I think, I mean, that's why we put out those questions, just to see what, you know, without knowing, until seeing it in action, you can say it's gonna be X or whatever, but until you see it in action, I mean, I'll admit that until I went and did the math, I did not know how many hours, like if you had asked me a year ago how many hours we requested, I would not know that answer. I would know what we requested, but I would not know what that number looked like, and I do now. So, you know, these are the kinds of things that, until you see, I think until you see them in action, you don't really get the full view of them, so.
Andy?
I mean,
Yeah.
to Lynn's point with the flexibility, I mean, and the usage as opposed to the reservation, I mean, I understand all of that, and until we have signage at every park saying, or every play space that says this has been reserved for this time, and people are gonna go play on the open space anyway, you know, so I get that. Soccer is unique as opposed to any stickball sport, because if one field is not ready, you know, for you because it's wet or something, you have multiple places that you can play. Whereas if you're playing baseball or softball, you're kind of stuck in that spot. You know, so that's why I would also lean towards, you know, making an exception for usage there. And then until the reservation system is more robust, I mean, my only hesitation on it is just how do you keep it from being, you know, abused? You know, that part of it. You know, like if you're posting stuff, or you know, we have the whole reservation system, and then all of a sudden someone goes in there like, oh, that park, oh, sorry, all these parks are you know, booked. You know, at that point, maybe then we revise it, you know, a little bit. You know, but as we go with this, and it's really hard to make your reservations for the year and then expect to pay that bill, you know, at the beginning of the time as opposed to, you know, later as
Yeah,
well.
that's why we thought if it was an actual usage, I mean, so it wouldn't be exact, right? If we paid for our just hypothetically, if we paid for our 2024 at, you know, in November or something, we would at least know what that total was. And in our budget for the next year, we could say, well, you know, it's definitely gonna be at least this, it might be more, let's add a little more in, and then we would at least be somewhat near it.
Yeah.
That didn't, I assure you, that did not happen in our budget last May. When we did it, we had paid 1,500, and I think we maybe listed it at 4.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you
So-
could also break it down, you know, in the season. I mean, there's obviously things you guys can work out with the village when
Yeah.
it comes to the fees and stuff, but that's what I have to say.
One
Nico.
idea that we discussed as a board last time is instead of we discussed the problems of having a cap because we were afraid that people could just simply reserve like all the time once they reach the cap. One idea that we talked about was the logistics of like if you go over a certain amount, you get a discount of like a certain percentage.
Okay.
But it would take some math to like figure out what would work.
Great, thank you.
Gina, what do you have to say?
Nothing excites me more than seeing these parks being used. We have an abundance of great parks, and when we compare the neighboring communities, it was pretty awesome how many parks we have. And nothing greater than having them used. That just brings a lot of joy to me when they're packed up with kids running soccer ball, where they're doing the sledding or whatever it is. And so I think it's awesome to do that. I think the soccer club ends up just being a large horse, and they utilize a lot of it. And so having the reservation, which what we're really driving for, is because we have great parks, why not make those available and try to improve upon those as we go on? And so therefore, the reservation. With a large entity of the soccer, why put the burden on them if they're going to reserve everything? Why don't we adapt them to what they're actually using? So I see very, very useful in doing that and making that available such that that flexibility goes on. My kids were involved in soccer, and all of the years we've done that, the flexibility and moving around, I've seen this organization being very flexible with it overall and adapting in many, many areas. I think that I've done a great job overall. We don't know what the future is. You know, we can say what's going to be good and things are going to change. Any of that goes forward. Is it necessary to really burden them with everything? We really want the kids being active. And the biggest thing I've been involved with is that we never want cost to be a limitation to participate in anything. So whatever it is, so all the programs have been about, if you want to do it, you'll do it. We'll figure out a way to do that. And so we don't want to continue to burden that. We want kids to be able to be out and do that. Best thing you're going to do from a wellness committee is get kids out moving and get them out in anything you do it. And on top of it, I look at it as these are a field, but there's these playgrounds adjacent to them all over. And there's a lot of other parks that are not just athletic, and there's things you can do with those as well. So there are places that if somebody wants to say, I want to make sure I can be there for my birthday party or something else, they can do that. A lot of flexibility with it. So I like the concept of being flexible with it. We certainly can do something and adjust and look at it this year and then see how it goes in the future. I don't think there's going to be a big anomaly that everybody else is going to start getting into. What at per use? It just happens to be the size of this organization. So Jeff, you had comments?
Well, just a few. So I wonder, what is the challenge of, say, like when you have a field reserved 8 to 8, there's a lot of them that are reserved 8 to 8. What is the challenge of narrowing that down? I mean, like, let's say you're going to use it, planning to use it 3 to 5 or 3 to 6. Why wouldn't you just reserve it from, say, 2 to 7 or something like that, and greatly reduce the number of hours you have? Because, you know, everywhere else reservation systems work is if you reserve, you're blocking that time and you're kind of buying that right, you know. And if we use a system like what you're proposing, like, well, we ended up only using it 2 hours that day, then we'd only be charged 2 hours. To me, that kind of defeats the idea of a reservation system. And then secondly, is if you have, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But with the fields, I applaud you moving around other fields, you know, and that type of stuff. We have to do that anyway, all the time, because if field goes out and gets ripped up, it gets taken out of service for a minimum of 3 weeks, if not 5 weeks, and it's closed for everybody, regardless of usage. But I just, you know, when I look through the hours and everything like that, I question myself. I said, well, what if all the clubs did this? You know, if all the clubs did this and just wanted to reserve everything, to me, it's just kind of counter to what we're trying to do. We already have an incredibly low rate. I mean, I think, what do you say, it was $10 to $25 an hour or something, Leanne?
It was 8 to 12, like in the
Okay,
surrounding
so $8 to
communities.
$12 an hour, you know, for field use, which is still pretty cheap. I know the discussion at that time was, well, we don't want to make it anywhere near that because we want to be this to be affordable. But, you know, if somebody, let's say you have it reserved 8 to 8, okay, and somebody wants to use it that day, it's Leanne to contact soccer to say, hey, they want to use it at 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. You're going to say, yeah, we're not using it that day, that's fine, and then change it. I mean, that's a lot of administration on Leanne's part, assuming she can get a hold of people, and you may not know that day whether you're using that or not. And that's sometimes some of the risk you have when you reserve something, you know. If you reserve something and don't use it, if you don't cancel it, then technically you're still charged for it, right? I do, kind of cringe when I went through this and I saw the hours per day, and I'm sitting there thinking, that's just blocking entire time periods off, and I just don't think that seems fair to other groups out there that, want to reserve as well, and use the fields.
Okay, so a couple of things. So till 8 o'clock, we will frequently have people schedule games on a Sunday night at 6 o'clock because they've already gone through and put their schedule together. A game gets rained out. They need some place to put it. Maybe they want to do it at 2 o'clock that day. Maybe they want to do it at 6 o'clock. We leave that flexibility. We
But
laid
why
out.
wouldn't they call Leanne to say, hey, we need to do a game Sunday night at 6
Okay,
o'clock,
well-
is it available?
Okay, so following though along what you just said, would it be better if we contacted Leanne and said, we're not using Norm Champion today from 8 AM to 8 PM? Or we're only using it from 3 to 8? We could do that, but it's gonna be every single day.
Well, and see, that's what I'm saying, that's creating way too much of a burden on Leanne.
Correct, but currently there is not much of a burden because there's really not a lot of people interested in the spaces that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, other than like when we get some usage at JC Community Park, and like I said, we have worked that through with lacrosse. We have not, other than Leanne, me just saying, Leanne, lacrosse said this is good. That was the end of that.
And that's fine.
So if it does get to a point where that is a lot of problem, we are certainly happy to come back and sit here again and have a discussion about it.
So what if you put in the hours you want in green, because you know you're gonna use them, and then, yellow maybe with the ones that could be potential, so she knows she can go ahead and use it unless you call her.
But Eric, how
you
early
gonna
do you
know
know when you're actually gonna have a game scheduled?
Well, so that's actually what was triggering through my head. I mean, and before you even said that, John, I had thought that through. Because that could be, I mean, if the answer was, well, if you don't want the space, you should just cancel. I was like, okay, I can just email Leanne every day. We have to have the fields on weekends. We're done by 7 AM is when we get the decision whether we're gonna play or not. Pending any weather that comes in after that. But I was like, I don't really think Leanne wants an email from me 365 days a year. I mean, maybe she does.
Personal,
I know.
but-
No, some of it, like I said, we have 3 games scheduled tomorrow night. And I think they're all on Village Fields.
Sure.
So if it rains, I haven't looked at the weather yet,
Right.
but if it rains tomorrow night,
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, to your point though, about the administrative costs with it, I think it would create more of a headache. Because a lot of these times you can't schedule out a month ahead of time. You can't schedule your whole month out to know we're gonna have games here and there. I'll call it an over reservation, because that's what it is. I mean, it allows the flexibility, there. But I think by doing that, it saves Leanne, the time.
Yeah. But
There
then
as
pay
well.
for that time that
No,
you're reserving.
I get it, but it's
That's my thing, is you're kind of buying that insurance. You're buying that insurance that, okay, yeah, we have that field reserved, we can use it, we have the flexibility for it.
Yeah.
But it is, otherwise, why do we have a reservation system? If basically the field is almost 7 to 12 hours every day, why even have a reservation system? Why not just block it off all summer?
Right, I understand
Yeah.
that too, but until we have a more robust reservation system where we have a sign that says this field is reserved.
Yeah.
If soccer shows up and they're walking out to the spot where there's lines painted, other people are probably like, oh, okay, there's a soccer game.
Yeah.
We're gonna go. But in the time that it's not being reserved, there's probably kids or neighborhood
Sure.
kids
Yeah,
out
we
there,
don't
using it as well. So I mean, it's just trying to find that balance. And again, to Mark's point, I mean, we don't want this to be a financial burden, but to your point too, I mean, the fees are relatively low, so finding a solution here, but then working towards something, something more stable in the future, I guess, would be what I would look at.
and these are the ideas we came up
Mhm.
with.
Right.
We're
Right.
not saying there aren't better ones out there. This is what we wanted to ask about. And if there are more discussions to be had, we're certainly welcome. We will come and chat anytime.
Yeah, and I think that willingness to have this conversation, I think, is admirable. I hear what you're saying, Jeff, but I also think that reservation is maybe not the greatest word for this because we aren't. If I show up to Norm Champion on Saturday at 8:30 and you're not using the field, no one's going to tell me I can't use the field, right?
Right.
It's sort of to your point, until there is a sign restricting me from using it. This is you laying out, this is when we expect or we might be using
Well, and
the park.
to be clear, like even in any situation, if we're not using it,
Right.
people can just go walk on it. It's not like we're gonna send people there. They're like,
Well, but
we've got this
Right.
reserved.
if you have it reserved and you have people showing up though, you'll let them know that, hey, we have this reserved
yeah.
and there's a game. and
Right,
so, I
which
mean,
is usage.
yeah.
Which is then why I think the payment is fair. So I think we have to think of reservation a little different here because it's not like we're reserving something that then can't be used for somebody else. And I think that's why the usage piece is an easier way to charge because it is not letting other people use it. The reservation isn't necessarily prohibiting somebody from using the field. I mean, I think if we got to the place where like they went online and couldn't see the availability, like that is something we need to talk about, but we're not there yet. And so I think for right now,
That was gonna be my question to Leanne, is if they looked on a Saturday at 2:00, is there anything that tells them no before they would contact you?
Or so there's a new
Not at this
system
point.
coming.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
is there a chance that in the system there might be something on that could be added? I don't even know. I've worked
No,
with a
that's
couple
okay.
of different systems
Mhm.
like that. But ideally, maybe something like this is reserved by Oregon Soccer Club. Put our email on there and
Yeah.
say interested in using
Mhm.
space at this time. Email
Mhm.
probably me, but and again, if that takes if that's a technical possibility,
Yeah.
that could take that part out of your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, we are again, I get these all the time with the other sports groups. We work it out, we figure it out, we shift things around because we can shift things around. So hey, I really want that field at that time. Okay, we'll move what we were gonna have there. We'll move it over here. You go there. Everybody gets to play. So we are happy to do that.
So some of the background, I mean, I've been on the park board for 5, 6, 7 years, and Mark
Mark.
and I and Jeff and you know, we've been working on this, trying to get this going, so we can have a Leanne, and so we can have a manager that can work on the park and get that done. Well, now, this is where we're gonna get the money, is to charge for the fields and then pay these people for this. So I think if we keep going backwards, then we're, you know, how's this all gonna work?
But in the
Can I
end of
correct
this
that? I mean, we're not broke. I just.
I mean, that's what Marty said in the meeting.
Kinda,
Martin always says that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's just the
That's
same.
his job.
there is, yeah, so there is gloom and doom, yes, because obviously we are held to a certain amount that we can increase taxes every year without referendum, okay? And it can only increase by the amount that's equal to the growth in the, new
Equalized.
construction, you know, and that's how we increase the levy. You know, the problem is, you know, and I think Martin said the other night is, you know, we can borrow and we can provide all these facilities. I think his example was we can buy a police car, borrow money to buy a police car, but we can't just generate a salary for somebody. These parks, I will guarantee you, are costing us a lot more money. You know, J.C. Park, Highlands and Netherwood, for the first time, we're doing the full fertilization schedules. We have irrigation systems. We have,
Fabulous.
huh?
It's in the best shape it's ever
It looks
been.
nice. I went by them today.
really
It looks, and so, but and we're mowing them almost every week now for at least the playing fields. And, but that's extra money. And so, to Judy's point, you know, we're never gonna break even on parks and that type of stuff, and we're not here to make it a moneymaker. It's just as a village, we have had to creatively look at things, how we can help recoup some of those costs. And you know, going forward, that's, I mean, gonna be tighter and tighter every year, and I think that's the the point that we've seen, Lynn, we're gonna see that through budget season this time, you know, and, so it's, yeah, it's hard, and we want people out there using them. We don't want them using when they're rained out and all that kind of stuff. But I love seeing them used. It's just,
Well, I didn't think $2 an hour was bad.
it's not.
You know, when you look at Fitchburg and, you know, every place else, they Fitchburg charges unbelievable. So, you know, when our fields were down, I remember Jamie, saying how much he was paying all the time to use the Fitchburg.
Jamie
parks.
Bush, yeah.
Baseball still in Fitchburg.
Yeah.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, baseball still playing in Fitchburg. That's where my son practices.
Hopefully not all of them.
Not all of them.
Okay. Yeah.
So for our action item, are we to act in order to send forward to the village board, or are we just looking at a new discussion because giving a chance for other organizations also to air out their thoughts?
Well, I think the invitation's out there for other organizations to come forward to the park board at any time to bring up, you know, a request like this or something else if they have a, you know, question or concern about the way that the parks are run and funded and things. So you could make a recommendation tonight if you want to sit with it for a while, maybe come back in June, and if other ideas come up, you know, just to be clear, it's not like we don't have a certain, you know, line item for example, Leanne's salary that's counting on a certain amount of dollars. It's offset by other funding sources. There's other things she does besides just, you know, the field reservations. There's sponsorships for a lot of these special events and a lot of other just kind of village-wide services that that she supports too. So it's not like if we don't hit a certain number, she's out of here or anything like that. So I don't want anybody to worry about that. And again, we're just trying to move the reservation system, you know, forward in terms of the fees, getting a little bit more in line with where our neighbors are, trying to cover some of these costs, and then also working towards a more robust system that is easy to use for everybody administratively and for users to be able to figure out what's available and everything. So I would say there's a lot of different ways to skin this cat. I think if you feel like you're all in consensus about options. I mean, I guess I heard that one option is maybe, you know, talking about a cap. Another option is doing kind of a truing up either at the end of the season or maybe at the end of each of your smaller seasons, spring, summer, fall, say, okay, this is what we actually used. I do kind of, it's an interesting point you made about, you know, there's not a sign out there right now that says this is reserved, you can't come on this field. So if there's nothing for anybody to really know that a field's reserved if you're not there, right? So they would just be able to say, oh, it's not being used, and
I don't even know, you guys at Park Board, I don't even know that I would support something that says this field is reserved.
No,
I don't like that.
Right.
Like,
So
if nobody's on it, just go, do what
right,
you want,
yeah,
that's
right.
fine.
So it's like if someone's gonna use it, if you're clearly on the field,
Yeah, I have never heard of us having any conflict with anyone who's like, wants to fight about it or something, they're just like, okay.
right, yeah, there's a game going on. So, you know, if you guys wanted to propose something to the village board that was, you know, we're open to doing more of a usage, cheering up either a couple times during the year or at the end of the year, if that's something that's agreeable to you.
That's fine.
You know, again, we don't have to come up with all the language right now. If you want to sit on it, I think there's no major rush. I think it's just something that, in fairness to the other organizations that are paying fees, we do need to kind of come to some sort of resolution. But I think from a budgeting standpoint, it's okay if we wait a month on this too, if we want.
Do the other organizations reserve like the soccer, like all the fields just in case, or are they more just like tennis?
This is the question I've been wondering.
No. So I think second to you guys was football, and they were somewhere in the realm of like 300 hours, like somewhere in there.
And are they using those fields, or are they also like? Because I'm just so if they're using them, then they're all usage primarily anyway.
They ask for extra time beyond.
I don't believe so. I mean, they initially gave me their requests, and then I said, okay, those are booked. This is your amount due. And I think they cut some hours after, you know, getting their bill, but that was about it. So I think they're pretty much in use.
So basically already usage for the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they're not reserving for the rain dates or anything like that.
Not to my knowledge, but
I think
Football tends to do less rain dates.
yeah,
Yeah, I think so,
I
too.
that's
They'll do
exactly.
probably
They
a
just
lightning
cancel.
date, but
Yeah.
Snow, rain,
Mhm.
football still tends to play.
Yeah.
At least while my son was doing it.
Same. Yep. Yeah.
This is relatively new to the agenda, and I think it's fairly new to just coming to the park board. My thought is sitting on this, welcoming other organizations to air out a little bit about it before we send it to the village board. The last thing we want to do is really send it to the village board unprepared. You know, I think we really do want to be organized for the benefit of the village board overall. What are other park board members' thoughts?
Folks, I apologize for my departure. I have to go coach a baseball practice.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks for being
That's
here.
great. Yeah, thanks for your time.
I'd be fine pushing this to old business at the June meeting as well.
11.
I don't think we have to encompass all of the sports organizations. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you can almost have an individual recommendation per sports organization, you know, but again, it's, you talked about it, Mark, you know, soccer is the big horse here. They're the ones using the heavy usage, but again, but they also have the flexibility of, they're not shoehorned into one field. You know, they're not just at Tracy Community Park or somewhere. I mean, they're all over. Anywhere that's flat enough to use a field, they want to use. And I like so it's different, you know, and we might get pushback from some of the other organizations, you know, on this about usage versus reservation. But there's also a reason for the overbooking of it as well. You know, what that buys, you know, what that saves as far as field maintenance as well as administrative time.
Well, it sounds like everyone does usage.
Yeah,
Anyway.
they reserve for their usage
Yeah.
more. I mean, there might be a few things where, okay, well, we didn't use it this night, so okay, that's $7, you know, or whatever it is, but it's not thousands of dollars. I mean, Leanne, when you sent out the proposed fees, what was that, in March? You know, my jaw dropped. I asked if it was a typo, you know, the amount of hours and there, but I mean, because the other organizations aren't using that volume of hours, you know, so I don't see it being, even if they did cut some others and we went to actual usage, but you know, my only reservation is on this is that you reserve it for the whole time, and until there's a more robust system, you know, you could potentially keep other people out, but right now that system isn't here, so I think that's something that we can revisit as we go down.
Absolutely.
Would it make sense to just invoice like everybody at the end of the year versus the beginning?
We could. I'll have to talk to Lisa, but I would be
For what
okay
it's
with
worth.
that. What's that?
For what it's worth.
Yeah.
Other comments from the park board?
I agree with you, Mark. I think we should hold it.
Okay. Let's do that. Let's table it. Eric, I really appreciate you coming forward and
Well,
bringing some ideas.
thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's questions and conversation. And I checked June 11th.
Perfect.
I can be back here,
That
see if
sounds
see if
good.
Randy can, but happy to answer anything and keep talking about it. We really do appreciate you taking the time to listen to us and engage on this. So, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
You too.
So 7B, in-person park visits. So one of the challenges I put out to all you park board members is to visit a park you may not be familiar with. I was going to assign you one, but I'm not going to do that at this point because it might be one that you already know. You already have a listing?
I got
Wow.
No.
Yeah, I have from,
So do you want them assigned?
no.
I strongly encourage a park that you may not be familiar with. You can go through the master plan and just run through the list of them, and just take a visit to the park and see what your perspective is. what you think of it. I challenge out to what could it be, how that park could get better, what could be a better place. There's nothing more fun to be able to see the toys in the sandboxes and.
That's where we go every weekend.
Yep.
Exactly, I was amazed by that, and some of the improvements that are done in those areas, and just other unique aspects that are in this park. So I encourage you to take a look at them. There are some that are just buried away that very little use at all, that are just ripe for lots of good activities where you could schedule your own activities. So that would be my challenge for you to make an in-person visit and take a look at it. Judy talked about Longfellow. Get on your bike and go for a ride.
And if you have littles, Maryhill Park. I discovered that park when we were driving around, going to all the parks for the park plan. But it's incredible,
Little gem.
especially with littles. It's a hidden gem. I have a runner. If anybody else is a runner, so the fact that he can't go anywhere, it's great. And yeah, there's never anybody there. Highly recommend.
Awesome.
I actually recently went through and went on like a trip around to see all the parks over the weekend.
Oh, did you? Awesome. Is there any one that stand out in your mind?
Like stand out how?
In any way.
Which play equipment did you get on?
Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to go on them, but like Highlands of Netherwood was probably the best.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Fair enough. Awesome. Great activities. So next time I look forward to some feedback on your park that you visited and what you think about it. So item 7C, the next meeting is June 11th. And we also have one scheduled for July 9th, both of them at 5 o'clock. So as was discussed, we are looking forward to some of the sports programs to visit once again.
Yeah,
and so that will be on 11th. So keep in mind that we encourage you to stick around for that as well. Any other items in the future meetings and assignments? I have none. Anybody else have anything that should be considered? Hearing none. Offer it up for park board comments. Judy.
Park board, I did get a chance, I was garage sailing this weekend and I stopped at the Gary Dish Park, which was, I just turned in you have that nice sideways so I can park, and I just stood on top of the hill and looked around and I thought, oh, this is pretty good, nice big.
Yeah, it's
So,
awesome.
Thank you for naming it after Gary, I think that was a very nice thing, so, as many years as you put in here.
And we're working on the playground design
Okay,
and hopeful installation in 2025. And we think we might, we will likely apply for a grant that would pay for 50% of the cost of the equipment. Or, yes, have us reduce cost of 50% of the equipment.
St. Mary's has a grant out now too for play equipment, so I don't know if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
Excellent. Nico, any thoughts?
No.
You just said
Lynn?
that you were out there, so let's.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I guess I'm trying to find out the name of the park, but I did the park on the hill with the water tower.
Ganser.
Yeah,
Gansner.
Gansner. Yes.
Gassner.
I saw that one. The paint was like pretty. It was chipping off a lot. That was one of the things that I noticed.
Off
I have
of
like
the-
a whole list of things.
off the
actually,
equipment?
but I didn't bring it this time.
Yeah.
Get ready, he's got it for the job.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Lynn?
No,
Nothing
okay.
for you? Andy?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Amy?
Nothing.
I'd like to comment about the Anderson Park having the kite event that wasn't quite enough wind from what I understand, but a really good showing. I think we had an anticipated number was was only to be maybe 100 people or so, and it packed it up. So great opportunity, and it's like any of our parks, we could have a great chance to get out and see different places. So always look for those opportunities, and looking forward to bringing a lot of people down on in May. So on the 18th. So other than that, call for an adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second by Judy. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you all.